I'm super excited to host Shelley Copsey, CEO and co-founder of FYLD, an AI platform giving frontline infrastructure teams real-time intelligence on the field. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Shelley, take us back to your early days. You came out of C0 and the PwC innovation team, both of which are far away from utility worker in high-vis jacket as a corporate career gets. What was the moment in 2020 that made you pivot from advising on innovation to building it field workers yourself, building it for them?
For about the 2 years before we founded FYLD, I'd been running another company in the geospatial sector. And so I think I'd had like a career advising. I'd seen all the problems that went on if field work wasn't done well, even if I wasn't on the front line. But those 2 years working in a geospatial company where our products were being sold to people who were actually on the front line, just began to see firsthand all the problems I'd advised on at head office and got closer and closer to the issue. When I saw the technology that had been built, I kind of inherited FYLD as an MVP spinning out of a company. I just immediately saw things I'd previously seen as an advisor, things I'd been experiencing in my current role, but I guess a chance to finally grab something in that infancy myself and build it into what I knew it could become. And, 5 years, 6 years later, I couldn't be prouder.
How were the early days of field look like, the first 90 days? Your thesis, validation, talking to customers?
Yeah, so interesting times. When I joined FYLD, we're at the height of COVID. And so we were trying to do, confirmation that we may have very early product market fit when we couldn't actually get out and put the technology in people's hands. I think though, there's always a silver lining if you look hard enough, and it just made us think very differently about how we could get product market fit. And I guess one of the things for us is all of our customers, they had to keep the gas flowing, the water flowing, and they didn't want any more interruptions. But despite that, what we saw was that we had the one customer in SGN. If people live in London, they'd deliver your gas. They just put this technology in the field workers' hands. And whilst we couldn't be out watching them and asking the questions the way we'd all done it, we kind of experienced that viral explosion, right? 750 people in the field. Anybody in this industry knows field workers don't easily say, yes, I'll use that. And they were all using it. And they were taking pictures of other applications because they trusted us and so forth. We just had to think differently. How could we, from this side of the computer, look at what they were doing, understand it, and really look and understand could the product work. So I think one of the benefits is every challenge we've had at FYLD, because our early days were so tough and we couldn't work to the normal ways we would. It's just built a culture in our company of thinking differently.
Any aha moments from the customer interactions you would like to share?
Like my biggest aha, and it's happened twice in respect of the same feature that we've eventually built. Right. I'm going to go to forms. Anybody that works in the AEC sector knows that forms are the bane of the existence of the person in the field. When we were building FYLD, the thing that was always dear to us, and I guess, the radical belief we had that people that came before us didn't have, was that we should make the life of the field worker easy. If we could help their day be easy, if we could keep them safe, help them get their jobs done faster, the benefits would flow to the back office. The back office kept saying to me, though, but Shelley, there is just some structured data that we need. Can you not put a form in, et cetera? And like the number of times I just stood with my customers and said, if we do that today, those field workers are going to say, we're just like every application you've given us. It's for you, it's not for them. And, it actually did cause quite a bit of friction with a number of customers. We probably lost some early customers because they're like, we do need forms. But if I go to the next aha moment, I think a big one for me was the point in time where we saw NLP, computer vision, reasoning engines all advanced so much that when someone again said, could you do forms? I was like, right, I do have to listen to my customer. This is not going away. But I could find an elegant way to do it that made the field workers' life easier again. So they could actually park all the applications they weren't liking, and they could do it in a way that was core to FYLD, which was make their life easier, don't serve the back office. And, again, if I think about aha moments, I don't think it's always bad to say no to customers. Maybe with hindsight, did I explain myself well enough to them about why no and why it would be yes? But definitely holding that tension of remembering who your core user group is and are you helping serve their purpose. In our industry, I think it's not thought about enough.
Shelley, if you look back, are there anything you wish you would have done differently Any lessons learned the hard way?
We probably stretched ourselves a little bit thin between a lot of use cases in those early years. And again, if I just go back to the environment we're working in, right? The first 2 or 3 years, COVID was persisting. We'd also seen so many people leave the fieldwork industry, right? We all remember when everybody was putting in new kitchens and field workers were going and driving Amazon trucks. Getting the attention of one very tight use case and being able to sell it on repeat was really, really difficult. So I don't regret that we went and sold to, verticals in adjacencies and so forth. But I do look back now and I really think it took us longer to nail with the level of precision that you would like that use case so that you could scale it versus what would be optimal if I had my time again completely.
I would like to do a bit deep dive into the product. So, field takes unstructured field data, video, audio, text, and turns into real time decisions. Can you walk us through what happens between worker hitting a record and supervisor seeing an actionable signal?
Yeah. So for us, first and foremost, I think about that we're almost crowdsourcing data from the field. A typical field worker would give us 7, 9, sometimes 12 pieces of information, as you've said, unstructured, about what's going on out in the field. From our perspective, we've got a 55 terabyte data set, proprietary, that helps us understand what does it take to get a job done in the field. So you can imagine now that every time a field worker provides a little bit more information about what's going on their site, we've got a really big data set that helps us understand what does that mean. Here's where this job was 2 hours ago. Here's what we're seeing now. What does that mean? And we analyze that from a variety of perspectives. Are we seeing operational risk emerge? Is there risk to schedule? This job looks like it might overrun. Potentially, does it look like they're going to have some cost overrun because they're going to break a pipe when they're doing a replacement, what have you? They've got the wrong valve. They're going to try and put it in, and then they're going to have to get another one. So we look at the cost aspect. Safety, critically important. We use the term industrial blindness. These people are sent out into harsh, difficult environments every day. They just sometimes don't see things. How can we spot that when they don't? And so we look through the information for all of those types of challenges. If I go to smart metering, huge. We can get customers to do a similar thing to the field worker. They can take video and we can use AI agents to analyze that video and again, help field workers understand what is the situation I'm going to encounter when I do my job. Can I plan it differently? Can I execute it differently? And if I now gather that up to, a whole organization, some of our customers send 30,000 people out to the field every day. How as a remote manager can I also help make different decisions because I've got visibility into all of my operations, but I've got it with data. As a human, I can't scan 30,000 jobs, but I most definitely can have a number of agents running full time, looking at risk from a variety of angles, telling that remote manager, here are the jobs that you should be focusing your attention on.
I can imagine the challenge of having all this unstructured data and also optimizing the AI agents to make it actionable signal. I'm curious, how does a customer onboarding process looks like if someone is listening wants to try it out on the next project?
Yeah. So super simple. The app itself feels a bit like a banking application crossed with a Facebook. Just think videos, timelines, little ticks that people have seen what you're doing, right? Super simple. We can, onboard a user just using an Edge-Me style product in 30 seconds flat and it's intuitive. We've got a lot of older people in this industry. If they're taking videos of the grandkids, they can use field. Younger people, you'll get that. They've got no hesitation with it, right? So really, really easy. And we just think about how do you get it across all of those people with military precision. Figure out who's your first 1,000 people. Out of those 1,000 people, who's your 100 that are just really going to go for it? Let them go in first, build up excitement, and then the mass middle, the typical things. If I go to the office, with them, we'll normally do solution workshops. Most people who talk to us know that there are many challenges going on with their field force, but we always think it's a matter of what is the most pressing challenge you've got that our platform can solve that aligns to your, higher level organizational objectives. The ones that we see on repeat here in the UK, water, we've got a leakage problem. How can we get contractors and our asset owner to work more seamlessly together so jobs get done faster? If I go to the US, our safety applications in the US get purchased hand over foot. We normally just choose that one problem that we can go after really fast with our customers. I think, we've all seen the MIT study about how many AI initiatives fail. We want to help our customers get the first use case up and running successfully. And it lets them go to, people at a more senior level up to the board and say, actually, we've got this AI thing working. So with our managers, we're very careful. We make sure that they've got, very discrete use cases that they want to go after. We get very clear on what is the ROI. This industry runs on thin margins, right? They want to see ROI. They want to see lots of ROI compared to license fees. And we make sure that we define very carefully what we're going to go after. And what we tend to find, though, is that first use case, probably the first 3, 4, 5 use cases are pretty intuitive. If you think about a customer that's saying, I've got too much standing time, how do I get, a higher number of working hours out of my field workforce? One of the features of our platform is we figure out where standing time is now and where it's going to come. If I'm in a remote command center, I'm not going to sit there and watch my job flick orange, like, you've got a problem, and not action it. So those first 3, 5 use cases for most of our customers, the behavioral changes, they're quite simple, but they're very impactful. What we then tend to find is that customers will begin to have a higher level ambition, that they'll look at all of our data and they'll begin to tackle larger problems. But I think in that first case, simplicity in the field, clarity of use case, know the ROI, and just go hell for leather on proving it out with them.
You made the whole decision making sound easy, but I know trying new market, figuring out the one particular problem and use cases. Can you help us understand your process of evaluating uh, what what strategy and how do you plan go to market?
Yeah. If I compare us now to our first 2 or 3 years, I think the platform is pretty generic across whatever industry we go into, but the use case will be quite different, right? And so what we've really learned, here in the UK, water and how do I stop pollutions really, really fast are the two biggest ones, as well with pollutions. Sometimes they will continue and sometimes they're out of the control because there's been heavy rain, sewer blockage, what have you. But, we really went deep by vertical. We waited till we had 2 or 3 customers. One of the interesting things of building Field is because we built it with SGN, our sample size in that early day was 1, and it's really easy to overinvest in thinking that you've got the use case nailed, but you've just got a sample size of 1 that's got a real big problem. So, when we went into water, we made sure we got the 2 or 3 customers. In our early days, we were pretty fast and loose with just letting them use the platform, not much cost, because we just thought about how can we learn more. But we learned to go from a sample size of 1 to a sample size of 3 and look for commonality of problems. And then we began to say, what's the playbook that if someone has leakage, we can help them solve the problem. In the US, we're doing a little bit of a similar thing at the moment. We're finding those people that want to go hard, fast and early, but also that have got a good innovation culture. They want to share and improve industry. And, we're making sure that we accelerate our paths to use cases. I think that's how you win in this market, right? You can hold out for big enterprise checks and all sorts of things, but it's slow moving. Other people are seeing what we're doing and they've got an eye on it. We've got to keep up that pace and stay ahead.
That's a great insight. One of the thing I found is you reduce about 48% in serious incidents on remarkable claim. So can you share what's the common change in worker behavior in first 90 days? How do you measure it?
Yeah. There's a few things that happen, right? So US even more so than the UK. When people get sent out to site, they're still sent out with pen and paper, physical pen and paper a lot of the time in the US. Here in the UK, it's probably digital pen and paper, like, a PDF form. Still not great. What those people frequently will do is they'll sit in their van, they'll sit in their hut, and they'll do a 30-page risk assessment. With us, we get them out of the huts and out of the vans. They still might not look up and see the overhead cables, but instantly what we can do is we can get governance that 100% of jobs are having a risk assessment done within 15 minutes of arrival. That's fundamentally different to pen and paper, digital pen and paper. We know they're being done. The second thing is that we've got them out of the huts and out of the vans, and they're walking around and they're talking to us about the risk environment. The behavioural change in how people think about risk when they're looking for it and when they're verbalising it. I think back to our early days when the AI wasn't so advanced as it is now. just by those simple changes of 100% governance out of your van and verbalize it, we would already get a 20% reduction in incidents and injuries. When you look at the next 30%, there's a couple more things we've done. Before the worker even gets to site, we use geospatial intelligence, we use all sorts of data we've got to give them a pre-site briefing so they can begin to think about the job before they get there. A good example might just be there are going to be heavy winds later in the day, your job involves lifting operations. You might want to think about reordering your job, right? So again, change the behavior, but now it's more AI driven before I get there. And then when I get to site, it is with the video, we see things that the worker doesn't see. So if I just go back to industrial blindness, we all know that clipping overhead cables is a huge problem in the industry. And we see field workers do a really great risk assessment and they're looking straight ahead, but they forgot to look up. We can see that. And if we don't see it, we can use geospatial reasoning to say, oh, when we were here last time, there were overhead cables, or we've got map indications there are cables. So we can show them things that they didn't see. To me, core, though, is engaging the field worker. We don't replace them in doing that risk assessment. We make suggestions and we continue to ask them to think. And so I kind of look at that first 20%, there's a huge behavioural and governance change. And the last 30% is the AI really helping them understand everything that they should understand about site risk.
What do you think are the common friction when people are developing solutions for the field worker? Because that behavioral change, seamless user onboarding is a very tough problem to solve.
Yeah, it is. I think first and foremost, one of the things that has set us apart is we built our product in conjunction with Boston Consulting Group. We are an AI company, but the level of ethnographic research we did about the day of the field worker and what are their frictions was tremendous. I think that this still doesn't happen enough in industry. I think still too many people sit in their offices and they have a think about a day in the life of the field worker. All I can say is when you get out to their site at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's bucketing down with rain and there is a burst pipe and you watch them, you think twice about, is more data better? Or do I need to run a strategy of big data at field level and just a small amount in the field so I don't disturb them and they can get their job done? You think about what's life like in summer versus what's life like in winter. And I think if more of us would do that in this industry, I think we would actually have even more great solutions for the field worker. I think that's still a bit of a challenge. I also think there's so many legacy platforms that, they're still in use in the field and they've still got, good operation. Like if you take an IBM Maximo, we need great asset intelligence and we need to get the cost of failure down and we need better prediction. But I see with a lot of the legacy platforms that they're taking a desktop application that was somehow bastardized and put in the cloud. And then they're trying to build some kind of mobile application on top of it, which is probably just a replica of the, right? Clunky. Not thinking about the day of the field worker. So to me, it's just, you just got to get out there, don't you? I love still getting out in the field, seeing our field workers, but I likewise like getting into the command centers with the managers. And, some of the stuff that I've often hypothesized we could do and which we could probably do doesn't solve their biggest challenges, right? And, again, it's great to have a 5-year view of what field will be, but like today, every new piece of product. I mean, this is an industry that's got a lot of challenges. We've got to be tackling their problems, not what we can imagine the future state will be. There's a balance, but you've got to strike a good one.
That's a great insight. If we were to look into 1 year from now version of field, what are we looking at?
First thing to me is hyper-personalization. When I say about being out there with the field worker, they do such incredibly different types of work. Even if you go into like a gas utility, you've got your first line responders who've been described to me as like the Navy SEALs of the gas industry. You've got the people that are then, taking over and doing reactive repairs. You've got people doing, proactive maintenance. They work different shifts. They've got different skills. The next step for us is making sure that what they get presented with when they open our application is 100% suited to their needs. And, the wonderful thing of AI and using it internally, like we suggest to our customers they should use it, is hyper-personalization at scale is, something that's becoming eminently achievable, and that it really aligns to our thesis of solve for the field worker and the rest will take care of itself. So that bit I'm looking forward to. The other piece that's really interesting we're finding at the moment is the agentic piece. Field is AI native. We have had agents in operation for 5 years, right? So lots of hype in the market, but we're very good at building agents. But our agents historically have run on our data. And what I'm beginning to see now is customers who historically that have to accept that any solution is going to solve 90% of their problem. People like me didn't want to fork the code for this, that, and maintain it, right? But the ability to now build an agent that actually, sits hybrid across our data, our workflows, their workflows, and to solve that last 10%, so end-to-end solutions are amazing. I love that piece, and actually seeing our customers really understand the power of data. I think 5 or 6 years ago, they got data. They didn't really get the AI plus data. It wasn't in our industry, but that's chalk and cheese now. And so, the level of customers that are really, really pulling for those, hybrid data workflow solutions with an agent is fascinating work. And, my product team, I think, is having the time of their life getting to do this. We've been investing in forward deployed engineers. It's really refreshed our business in many ways.
Yeah, I don't see more forward deployed engineer in our industry. So it's great to see you're all integrating that. How can listeners support you in your mission?
It's first and foremost just come and talk to us and gain an understanding of how our platform works. I think a lot of people that have been in this industry, very, very talented people, they've spent careers managing operations backwards, right? This has gone wrong. I need to fix it. Lots of technologies are coming to market and they're like, it's gone wrong. We'll help you fix it faster. People should talk to us because we stop things going wrong. We predict where risk will and we help you shut it down, and that's how we drive every operation through to safe completion. It's a different way of thinking. We want people to talk to us who are like, actually, we want to do this different. The opportunity of data and digital isn't to take a broken process and make it a bit less broken. It's to reimagine it, but to do it with the field worker at the heart, right? These people, they keep the gas running, they keep the water running, they keep our roads operational. Right, they're at the heart of our society. So people that have got that kind of shared ethos with us, we just love to talk to them. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not, but the conversation is always interesting.
Any piece of advice you like to share for construction AEC founders?
I think you've got to have a high level of resilience, high level of curiosity. If you have the two of them, I think the best thing about this industry, though, it's full of engineers, and engineers are curious. Engineers like people with different perspectives where they can have a healthy debate. So have a thick skin, have a point of view, but be willing to be challenged, and just get out there and start building, get the technology into the hands of your users, and be open-minded as to where it will go. I think that the opportunity in this industry, which is really at the tail end of digitization, but which is one of the world's biggest industries and so crucial, the opportunity is massive, right? We're barely scratching the surface. Get in, have a go. It may not work out, but you'll probably find your next 3 to 5 venture ideas if you take that first step.
That's an amazing advice. Let's wrap up the interview with a rapid fire where you have less than 30 seconds to answer the question and you have to keep it super brief. What's your favorite
Go.
restaurant?
Oh, good God, anything steak. Ibai in London's doing it for me at the
Any
moment.
city or country which is in your travel bucket list?
I travel non-stop. I love it. This year, summer is in Turkey, mix of beach resorts in Istanbul, which I've somehow never made
Your
it to.
favorite movie?
God, I don't know if I have a favorite movie. Books I'm much better with. Any Human Heart by William Boyd is my favorite. Movies, I've got that horrific habit of scrolling these days.
Best piece of advice you have received till date?
Just to treat your career as non-linear. If I think about work, best thing I've ever done is be open to sideways moves and different experiences.
3 words your best friend would describe you as?
Overexcited, not loud though, probably a little bit homely, and I think really warm and thoughtful.
Imagine 30 years later and you have infinite money and resources. What are we looking at? What's a day in your life?
I joke I just want to buy a big country house and do lots of gardening, and I will probably leave the tech sector behind in the next 5 years once this is done. I have loved it, but it also takes a chunk of your flesh.
Your role model?
I don't have one in particular. I think I look around for many. I like to look at people who are both very successful, kind, and give back to the community, and there's so many of those people out there to learn from.
What would you say to 18-year-old Shelley?
Your career is going to be so much fun, but it will be hard at points. But just know that if you put your head down, you can have great success and great fun all at once.
It was incredible hosting you, Shelley. Anything you'd like to share on a closing note?
No, do you know, the one thing that we haven't covered, I always just like to say is a huge thanks to my team. I get the privilege of doing things like this. I have the most amazing team at FYLD, some very, very loyal people who've been with me for 6 years. So, imparting, I think that the only other piece of advice I'd impart is like look after those team and they'll look after you. But thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed
My
the
pleasure.
conversation.